This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries, of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!
Hello, everybody. It is time for more Law Light, brought to you by Foreman Watson Holtree, FWHlegal.com, coming to you loud and clear from 530 Frederick Street at the high-rise white brick edifice.
Like the Micro Machines guy.
It is on.
Like Donkey Kong.
Oh.
Two old references back to back.
Boom. PJ.
Hey.
It's just us, man. We don't have a guest. We've been knocking the guests out left and right.
We have.
And here we are, just you and I. And it's hot outside, so we are blessed to be in the old air conditioning today.
Wow.
And we are in the studio, a.k.a. library.
That's right.
And what's on your mind?
So the wedding went really well.
It did, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a beautiful ceremony.
The typhoon outside.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because it was very off and on, more off than on when you made the decision to do it inside. But had someone been like, you know what, let's just go ahead and do it outside. At the moment when the ceremony began, it was like nonstop rain after that.
Yeah, it was a tough decision, but the right one. And so we just made the most of what we had, and it was a great evening. Yeah. It was a great evening, and I guys,
think so too.
We just had the opportunity to watch the video that you guys did, you and Vincent, and man, it's very compelling. And
thank you.
Oh yeah.
The first thing that came to my mind after your all's reactions to the video was, well, there's two more weddings coming, and now we've set the bar kind of high with this one.
Well, this was good. It's a different style of video than Laney's, you know.
Right.
So, and both of them were tremendous, but yeah, this one kind of gives you the chills every time you watch it because you feel like you're.
I went into this video because I don't normally do wedding videos.
Right.
So, Kate had sent us several examples of what she was looking for, which is what this video ended up being. But I had never done a wedding video like that, and I was telling you that I think yesterday that
right.
I was kind of nervous because I'd never done it before. Now I like a challenge. And thankfully, I was inspired. I found a song that I thought worked really well, and that really, sparked an idea for how to do, how to piece it together. Because I wanted it to kind of like tell a narrative story, which I think
it does.
It does. So
captures a lot of the elements of the day, the rain, and the being in two different locations, and just you can tell they were super excited to be starting their life together.
Oh, yeah.
It just comes through. So
yeah. Well, I prefer this way of doing wedding videos.
I'll make a note of it.
Okay.
But let's just hold back on even worrying about the next.
Yeah. Let's not even think about
for
those.
2 weddings in less than 9 months has taken its toll on me, and but no, I'm glad they both have got fantastic. Both of my 2 oldest daughters have fantastic husbands. And our family's growing. So, hey, I want to talk to you about a few things.
All right.
One thing that involves you and Vincent, and that is I just came back from doing my radio interviews down at Cromwell, and Brian, who does the talk radio now, he does like a 15-minute segment with me,
right?
And we discussed how Foreman Watson Holtree is working alongside of nonprofits and charitable organizations in this region and using the skills and the resources that are what we've labeled FWH Media Arts.
Right.
And that is now off the ground and running.
Mm-hmm.
And so give us an update on, what's going on, where are we at in that? I mean, we've told our listeners that this is a way that we're going to come alongside of the community, but now we're putting some muscle behind it. So what's been going on with that?
Well, we sent letters out, letters of intent to different organizations. And of course, if there's any organizations who listen to the podcast or anybody who's attached to a local organization here in Owensboro, you can give us a call, or you can check us out on fwhlegal.com. And of course, all of our contact information is there. But so Vincent and I went and met with Friends of Sinners.
Right.
That was the first one, who got back to us. And the gentleman we met with, super nice, very charismatic, really passionate about their mission and what the service that they're providing. And it was funny because we're going in there with an open mind because we don't know exactly what they're thinking or what they're looking to have done. And just sitting in the meeting with him, I looked over at Vincent at one point and I said, this guy right here, he's the video.
Right.
He's the guy that needs to sit down and kind of tell their story, and then we build the video around him. So it kind of, in a way, came together right there in just that initial meeting. And of course, Vincent's going to get back with him, and they're going to kind of come up with
the storyboard.
Some bullet points and things to talk about. And then Vincent went and met with Johnson's Dance Studio. So he went and sat
Owensboro Dance Theater. They're Owensboro Dance Theater. Johnson, that's one.
Is it one and the same?
Well, it's two, but they met together with all of them.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that.
Right.
So even I'm learning something.
Well, yeah, they did that, and I guess the cool thing is they're celebrating a 40th anniversary, and so we're going to get to work with them on a logo for that, and put together a video as well.
Cool.
One of the things that I think is neat is that we sent out those letters and got the responses that we did with people saying, "Yeah, absolutely, I'm interested." And that was sort of a first wave because the way that we did it was we asked our staff members and attorneys here what charitable organizations or nonprofits are you are important to you, and because we're wanting to help. And then they responded, and we used that to put together our master list.
Right.
Then the letters went out, and now we're starting the meetings. And so what Brian was talking to me about when I did my radio interview about this is why did we do that? And I told him, that while we love being involved in local events, we've learned that takes a lot of time, and that we're already busy people. When we go to Help Build Hope, or when we go, do a car wash and help raise money, or we do, whatever we do something down at the barbecue festival, or we go out and we fold clothes or organize clothes for, organizations that whatever we do. And those are all needed things and necessary. However, our staff is we could work 60 hours a week here at the office. And so really the only time off that we have is a couple days on the weekends. And we try to allow that to be family time for our staff so they can spend some time with their families. And so what I found is that, if 5 or 6 or 7 times a year, I'm also saying, hey, on Saturday, you guys have got to show up and do this. Or on Sundays, you guys have got to show up and do this. That, it can be one of those things that we're probably going into it with the wrong heart. We're not going into it ready and motivated and wanting to do it. We're looking at something that, oh gosh, I got to go do this,
Right.
And so being aware of that, I was like, well, what resources do we have? What are we good at that we can share and do it in a way that comes across as something that's a necessity? And when we put our finger on this whole idea of helping them with fundraising videos or promotional videos, that's something that I think is going to be a fantastic help to them and meet a big need, free up some revenue for them,
right.
And also with us, demonstrate to people the skills that we use, the resources that we use in every case.
Yeah, in most places, the mission is the same every year. So these videos, especially if it's something that's promotional in the sense that it just kind of tells their story and says, here's who we are and here's how we operate and what we're looking from you, the person who could help or donate to our cause. I mean, that's something that they can use for years and years and years. So yeah, it's definitely, I think, and ever since, next month I will have been here for 6 years. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that I can say about having worked here is that since day one, it's very community oriented. So I think realizing what we're capable of here from the media arts standpoint, not just the legal standpoint, and being able to reach out, and because it's about community and about helping. Right. This is just an additional extension of our mission, which is, helping individuals who have been hurt or wronged or whatever the case may be. Now this is another way for us to do that very same thing, but just in a different way.
That's right. And, like Brian asked me the question, Brian Jackson, he was like, okay, let me get this right. So you are paying people on payroll to spend time on things that are not case related. And I was like, exactly. And I was like, however, the way I look at it is I could, when I was signing checks and sending them to billboard companies, I was writing money out of our budget to a billboard.
Yeah.
I would rather take that money and pay you guys, you know what I'm saying, to do work and pay you for your time and help a nonprofit or charitable organization that's going to make a lasting impact in our community.
Right.
So to me, it's more important to help them than it is to continue to make billboard companies more money, and we get exposure simply because we're doing the right thing as opposed to paying money to have our face put on a billboard. So, and this is not me talking bad about the people that decide that they want to use billboards for their business. Obviously, there's a place for that. We've decided that we're going to do it a different way, and it's exciting.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how it's been since I started here, is that we're going to do things a little bit differently, and so far it seems to be panning out pretty well.
We're working it out. So, and speaking of which, with the new cards,
I saw that.
You see that? We got
Vincent came in the office yesterday, and he was like, "Hey, did you see these came in?"
Yeah, they're awesome. They're down in the lobby. It's a new. We call them the brochure, but it's really a 2-sided card, and it talks about all of our social media, and then on the back it's got the all the awards and the organizations that we belong to. So, just a pretty cool thing that we're handing out to everybody that comes in the office, and get out to people to see just a snidbit of what the firm's up to.
Yep.
So, all right, I want to talk to you about a topic. I don't know if you've heard in the news here locally. This is a local news issue, and I'm just now kind of getting asked questions about it. And so I was gonna see, have you read anything or heard anything?
I don't read.
Okay. Have you heard anything or been told anything about the new, I guess, outer loop that's going to go around, or that they're projecting or to propose to go around, like in the county?
Yeah, the bypass of the bypass.
Yeah, the second loop. Right.
Right. I've heard a lot of mumbles and grumbles. More grumbles than anything. I haven't read too much on it. I did have a conversation about it. I've had a conversation about it with a couple of people. Probably the longest conversation I had with my mom. And my mom is very... she's one of those people where it's like she's used to Owensboro being a certain size, and she wants it to kind of stay that way. And I liken that to a parent who is seeing their child grow. Right. And gets sad about it because, it's growing up, but there's nothing they can do about it. And that's life. That's what life is. Life is change and growth. And the more that people come here and the larger Owensboro gets, you're going to have to see that more and more. And so I guess my response to it is I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing, because I'm assuming, and like I said, I haven't read too much in it, but my assumption of the whole situation is that they, and you've probably read more about it, but the way I'm looking at it is, I guess, by putting an outer loop that goes further out, what that does is that creates a larger area for development in between, like what is our bypass now and then the outer loop. So that creates, just more expanse for Owensboro to be. So they're going to fill in that area between the two with businesses and neighborhoods. And so they're thinking ahead in the future.
Right. The other thing is to relieve traffic. The whole reason for a loop in the first place is because the roads in your downtown and that link to your downtown are getting overpopulated with cars,
right,
congested. And so if you put a loop that links those roads further out, then you can get to those roads. And let's say something's closer to that end of Frederica, okay, then if you took the loop to where it intersects with Frederica, you can get to those things instead of congesting Frederica from, say, 5th Street out, you see?
Right.
And so the whole idea of the loop system, when a city is built like Owensboro, where the hub began in downtown at the river, right, you can build around that and kind of imagine it as kind of a half circle, and that was the first loop. That's the bypass. And
right.
You look at imagine, let me ask you this question real quick. And I have read about it and I understand the legal principles of it, but let me ask you this. If we had no bypass, okay, how would you get from where you live out to, say, Spectrum, out off 60? You
right.
would drive through downtown.
Yeah, so I live on 60s, and when I leave here, I get on 4th, which becomes 60.
Right.
So I live right on 60. So in order for me to get to Spectrum, I get back out onto 60, which then curves around and becomes 2nd Street, and then I just take 2nd Street all the way down to Spectrum. But if I wanted to avoid driving through downtown, especially if it was like a Friday after 5 evening or something like that, I would go right, I'd go to the bypass, and then I just loop it all the way around. It's a straight shot.
Right, and you were
right
one less
Spectrum.
Car going through all the city streets.
Right.
And so... and you can do that equation anywhere else. Like if you were over at Davis County High School and there was no bypass, and you wanted to come to this office, right? Or or somewhere on that side of town, you would have to go down 231, and then you'd have to cut over. You see what
right.
I'm saying? Instead of that, when that bypass links the main arteries that are heading out of town, you have the ability to get to those without being on the congested city streets. And so it relieves a lot of traffic.
Yeah. Well, what I find interesting is like, so my mom lives right there on Parrish Avenue, and to me, the two major thoroughfares, I would say, would be Frederica and Parrish. Those
right.
seem to be the two ones that taken the most. And she's always complaining about how busy Parrish is, just because of because of the growth out on 54 and all that. So she complains about the amount of traffic on Parrish, but she's also complaining about this outer loop,
right.
which to me, the outer loop is trying to alleviate her concerns about like semi trucks and things constantly going down Parrish Avenue, or a lot of these business trucks and stuff. So you just can't make her happy.
Right.
I think
Well,
that's what it really comes down
here's
to.
a couple of things. First of all, there's a lot of people that the naysayers say, "Oh, this came. It's all conspiracy, and everybody just waited to launch this on us without giving us notice, and blah blah blah." Okay, well
Right.
that's not totally true. If back in the mid '50s. Is when Owensboro looked at the master plan of bypass and second bypass, okay? And then it basically got brought up to the back burner in the mid-'70s. Discussions about a second loop in Owensboro, and
I didn't know that.
And then now it's like on a 10-year plan, and so it's not like this is just something that people decided to spring on people. The other thing that's important to understand, idea of using city and state roads to get places has always required us to take certain amounts of land, right? Always.
Right.
I mean, so where the roads you drove on to come to work today at some time where somebody's bean field or somebody's tobacco base or,
Right.
you see what I'm saying? It was somebody's. This idea of eminent domain, where the state can basically take property at fair market value for the purpose and the betterment of society, okay, it's not a novel concept. Everywhere there's a road has at one time not been a road.
Well, it's funny that you say that. My grandfather, when he was alive, he passed away in end of 96. But his big hobby was the history of Owensboro. So he has all these photos going all the way back to when there's an aerial photo that I always remember he had of. It's right after the main building for Wesleyan was built, when that's all the college was.
Right.
And it was, Frederica at that point was a dirt road, and they had a dirt road leading up to the college.
Right.
And that's all it was. So everything, you could see the point from where it was a paved road and then went gravel dirt, like because of this aerial photo. And it just fascinated me and I was just thinking of that because I'm like, I'm sure there were farmers right outside that picture.
Why are we putting
right?
Why are we coming out here with the road? It's going to be devastating to us. And then and so okay, I am not a big farm property owner. I get it. These farms have been in your family forever and ever. But your family flourished on your farm out there because just a few miles away, somebody gave up theirs.
Right.
And you have the ability and the amenities of Owensboro out there at your farm because people that lived in here had to sell small plots of land for a road to come through, and so it is a divisive issue because it is going to affect adversely, a number of people.
Right.
But when the benefit for the good, and that's what it is, I guess it comes down to having to find what is the good, And so I get it. It's going to be a topic that's going to be highly addressed over the next few months here in Owensboro because the signs are all up, you know. And
let's face it, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. It's a matter of. I know that it's a matter to what degree and to which plan they pick.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
It's one of those things where it's like, I understand. People should have a voice to some degree. Social media doesn't count because social media gives people a voice who usually don't deserve to have a voice,
right.
Sadly. But I get reaching out and saying, "Hey, how do you all feel about this?" But at the same time, I feel like that's just a pleasantry,
right?
Because if it's something that the government is looking at, or the city is wanting to expand, it's going to happen. So there's no point in fighting it. Just accept it and try to make the best of it. Now,
and be sure you're dealt with fairly.
I'm not saying roll over. I'm just saying find a way to accept it and be a part of it in a more positive manner than just sitting around and complaining about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was just something that's been brought up. We've actually, because we have a real estate practice here that's fairly well known, we're starting to get a few calls about it,
Right.
And so I don't want to not discuss it here. The podcast, we discuss local events. And
absolutely.
We discuss pandemics and we discuss national events and all kinds of and other craziness, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway,
with eminent domain though, do they come in and acquire that land? Do you get do you get like an alternate piece of land, or it's just you just lose that land?
Right, you're paid for that land.
Oh, okay. So you are compensated.
Right, you're compensated. Yes,
okay.
Definitely. And what they do is they try to assess. There's two parts of being compensated, and this is probably a whole nother show, but in essence, you have the actual real estate value. In other words, if it's 9 acres in East Davis County or 9 acres in West Davis County is the square footage that they end up taking with it's not just a road. You have a lot of footage outside of the road to support the roadway, right?
Right.
And that it no longer is tillable, okay? So you get the actual value of that, okay? Then the other thing that comes into play with this is, let's say Farmer Smith says, okay, you are taking away from me 40 tillable acres, all right? And then I can show you over the last 5 years, the yield on those 40 tillable acres has been X per year. And so if you get the average of what he's made on those 40 acres, then what you do is you say, I need to be compensated to some degree, at least over a work life or a reasonable time, so I can. And so there's the valuation of it from a crop production or a income production standpoint, and the value of it from just a pure real estate value. And so that's where it gets a little tricky, okay? But there is a fair number that monetarily will compensate. Now, what they don't compensate you for is now all of a sudden you hear freeway, and for you hear traffic, and now there's traffic going through your farm instead of it being just a piece of ground, and that is hard to swallow for people who have had their privacy and had their their quiet. It really is. And but again, if the better is for the populace, and it creates economic opportunities and growth. I mean, you don't have to go too far to find a city that was once little brother to Owensboro that is now big brother to Owensboro, and that's Bowling Green.
Right.
I mean, you go to Bowling Green and the restaurants they have to offer, the arts that they have to offer, the schools. I mean, you go down there and we are in their shadow, man.
Yeah.
And so if you don't make moves like this, then you will forever stay a certain size. In my mind, I don't think it's good that you stay a certain size. I think you need to grow. It gives everybody more opportunity.
Yeah.
But I'm depending on who you talk to, that's an unpopular opinion.
Well, the other thing too is growth brings things that, there's things that some people are afraid of because it's not what they want. It's not something that they're used to, but like, I want diversity. I want more things to do. I want more culture. I want more art. I want more of that stuff. And like you said, the only way that that's going to happen is you have to grow the area. If it stays one size, it's just going to.
You're right.
People are going to end up moving away versus coming in and the community flourishing.
Couple of examples before we wrap this up. I remember one time I attended a church in Louisville that it's now considered a mega church. It's called Southeast Christian Church. It's humongous. If you ever are on 64 heading from Louisville to Lexington on the Blankenbaker Road exit, you look over to the left and it's just an enormous facility. And I was a member of that church when we moved to Louisville. The church was over off Hikes Lane, okay, in Louisville. Right. And the membership was about 1,000 at that time, all right? And they had made the decision to move to a new place, not even the Blankenbaker Road one yet. And the minister said, by show of hands, how many of you have come to have an active relationship with Christ, or a religion has become more important to you, and you've gotten involved in this church over the last 6 years? Well, when he said, just by a show of hands, so all these people raised their hand. Well, if you looked around, that was about 60% of the people. And he said, well, we took a vote 6 years ago on whether or not we needed to expand our facilities. And we voted to do it, even though we were going to have to go in debt, even though we were going to have to make sacrifices, even though it was going to be a difficult move. We did. And if we hadn't, then you 600 that just raised your hands would not be plugged into a church, have kids ministries and all those kinds of things.
Right.
That church now is like 30,000 members. Okay.
Holy crap.
Now my point is, is that's an example of planning and leadership and expansion where it has benefited a bunch of people, even though it did adversely affect a few, okay? Another example is here. Let me give you an example here. When I came here as the managing partner, there was 2 associates and about 3 staff members. That was it. Look at where we are now.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because
it's right.
My mind thought
it would be you. You would not be here.
Right.
You know, Vincent would not be here. Shannon would not be here. Chris would not be here. Kara would not be here. You know, you go down the hall. Those are families that are being supported and affected, and it's family that has expanded because we said, look, we're going to grow at a good pace, and it's going to cost us, it's going to hurt sometimes, but we're going to make those moves so that we can benefit more people. So growth always has a pain factor,
right?
But if it's done right and for the good, then it needs to be done. You know,
I agree.
All right, amen.
Yeah, naysayers. Stop trying to take my job away from me.
Hey, but listen, here's the thing. I would welcome if there's anybody that listens to the podcast that would like to discuss the other side of this. I think it would be a wonderful podcast because I'm open. I want to hear and I want to digest that, and but so if there's anybody listening that would like to discuss the cons of an outer loop or an expansion here in Owensboro, let's talk about it. You're our guest, okay?
Yeah.
So,
hey, real quick before we go.
Sure.
So I was thinking about this yesterday.
Sure.
Okay, so the pandemic. For a year, life pretty much came to a standstill for the most part.
A halt.
I would say
agree.
like 90% standstill.
Yes, sir.
Working at home. Things are closed.
Masks,
gloves, all that.
Right.
Now look at where we're at. And the reason I thought of this, it wasn't yesterday. It was the other day. I went to the movie. I took Logan this past weekend. It was Logan's birthday, and we went to the movies. And the movie theater was packed.
Right.
Completely back to normal. Sitting next to total strangers. The movie theater was full. And I was sitting there thinking about how, and this isn't me saying like that what happened wasn't severe, because over 4 million people worldwide,
lots of deaths,
lost their lives, and it's awful. But it's just weird to think that now suddenly for most, I would say most of the United States, suddenly it's like the world's back to normal. It feels like
it is. I hope we stay there.
Right.
I don't want to be an alarmist. I saw a headline today that showed me that I think Pfizer is really going to be coming out this fall with time to get your boosters. And I hope everybody takes heed to that and gets their booster shots when they come out.
Yeah.
Because the only way this has been possible is the vaccination.
Right.
It's the only way. And we had a pretty good friend of ours who recently passed away because of COVID long haulers, developed pneumonia. And it's a very real thing.
Right. And
the only way life can return is if we continue to stay updated on our vaccines. And you're right. I've had the same thoughts. I'm like, man, I forgot how good these things feel. I forgot how nice it is to be. You know how many times I walked 50 feet away from my car going in somewhere and go, oh, I forgot my mask, and had to walk back.
Right.
Those kinds of things. So you're exactly right. And I hope that means that we start to see some of that back here at the office, because we definitely went through a period of not taking in as many cases. I know your board has a lot of workups on it, so
yeah, they've been
adding back in.
Well, we have a lot waiting in the wings
Right.
who haven't fully finished, and probably a lot of that was because
treatments
were halted and stuff.
Sure.
So, but yeah,
it's a positive time. Concerts are coming back.
I saw that,
all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So let's just hope it stays that way, and that people will continue to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
Right. So,
get those vaccinations. Vax that thing up.
Yes, thank you for the reminder of that horrific video you showed us this morning. Vax that thing up.
Juvenile's proud of it.
Yeah. For those that haven't seen it, it's the new Vax That Thing Up by Juvenile.
If you don't know who Juvenile is,
just look it up. You'll find it.
Yeah, he was popular in the 90s.
After you look that up on YouTube, then go over to Done Lite and listen to of our many great episodes.
All what is about to be 95 episodes.
We're going to have to plan the 100th.
I was going to talk to you about that.
We need to plan it. I know Missy wants to be on it,
Okay.
And so we'll have a few things planned for that one. Okay, man?
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you guys for your time. It's always great to know that we have faithful listeners, and we look forward to new listeners. This has been Done Lite, brought to you by Foreman Watson Holtry, FWHlegal.com. Do we have Hawaii or Alaska yet?
I was getting ready to say, that's you, Hawaii and Alaska. I didn't look before we started this podcast.
I think we got it. If you would have looked, you'd have seen it.
I think you're right.
I think I'm right.
We'll get back on that for the next episode.
Until next time, thank you.
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!